Hey, welcome to KUAM News's The Candidate, The Buzz on Isla 63. This morning I'm glad to introduce our senatorial candidates. On the Democratic side, we have Frank Ungacta. How you doing, Frank?
Buenas, Jess, buenas.
Yes, buenas. And on the Republican side, we have Felix Benavente. And they're our guests this morning. We'll be talking, of course, about their platform for this upcoming 33rd Guam legislature. We decided that, Frank, I guess you're going to go first. Go ahead and tell the people of Guam again your name and your platform.
Buenas, Jess, good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Frank Ungacta Jr. There's a little disclosure. Everybody here on the island knows me as Kool-Aid, so usually they don't know me as Frank, but it's Kool-Aid. I'm number
Sure.
7 on the Democratic side of the ballot.
Okay. Felix?
After Dr. Guam and Jesse, and thank you for having us here. I'm from Bargata. My platform revolves around economic development. I think we should be active in creating new jobs for especially our young people. Many of our population moves to the States right after they graduate from high school, or just move to the States because of lack of opportunities on islands. So I'm looking at programs that would create, especially creating new urban centers and things like that. And also try to help some people get the Tomorrow Land Trust program moving. Thank you.
Okay. And, okay, Felix, we'll start with you now since Frank started. Let me ask you, going back to, again, platforms as, of course, economic activity here in Guam and stimulating economic activity here in Guam. We've got, I think it's the Guam Visitors Bureau or the hotel industry are looking again and saying, hey, we want to revisit the QC program for hotels to entice hotels to come to Guam. There's also talk over the years about revisiting, of course, the QCs because, whether or not, I guess the public auditor has come out and said, we don't know what the benefits have been since, I guess, maybe over the years it hadn't been noted. What is your view, or how would you go about, again, tax holidays, basically, to entice companies to come out here to Guam? And likewise, how are we going to get new industries here in Guam that maybe are higher paying jobs as opposed to maybe entry-level jobs?
Good question. The verdict is still out on the effectiveness of rebate programs, and this has been very popular in the past few decades. So I've been in the land development industry on Guam for over 30 years as a planner in Gulf Guam. I was part of the team that oversaw the development of Tumon Bay, for example, as it rose from open ocean and beautiful harbor, beautiful beach area to a billion-dollar district. And a lot of that was based on government incentives, basically in terms of the infrastructure and the beauty of the place. And private sector just took it and ran with it, and very little, from what I understand, very little of that involved rebates. Rebate programs or incentive programs are actually just what they mean. You get it so that you can get here, not so much to you get it after you get here. I'm proposing that we create new urban areas to provide the synergy and the excitement that these people can come and enjoy.
Well, thank you. Frank, you have 1 minute. Same question.
Well, for the QC, just like you mentioned, I mean, we really got to take a look at that program. I mean, we got a lot of programs that we have out there that, some of them we got to revamp and really look at it, because the government we're talking about now, we got shortfall here, shortfall there, not enough money for this program, not enough money for that program. So we got to really look at what we're giving the incentives to. I mean, we can give them the incentives to entice them to come to Guam, but how long are we going to give them that QC for? 10 years, 20 years? How long are we able to keep sustaining our government, sustaining what our people need, if we're going to keep giving quality controls, QCs out just because we're going to keep enticing them to come? And then how long will they take advantage of that? I mean, we're talking about we're collecting taxes and that we don't have enough to collect that. We want to increase property tax. We're going to take property tax away. We're going to increase a lot of taxes and take people's properties and all this because we're trying to get revenue to sustain the government in Guam as it exists.
Okay, you're at 1 minute. Okay, is that it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Frank. Let's go back to again. See this federal government. You know, the status, of course, that we're in at this point. We hear, of course, about compact impact. We hear about the Jones Act, and so these are the things that if we want again economic activity, some of these things that are regulated have federal regulations that are bestowed upon us, and regardless of how much we want, whether it be shipping or airline industry and all that, we have federal statute, federal regulations out there that we have to succumb. What would you do if you were elected in the 33rd Guam legislature to apply pressure on whoever that delegate may be to get on the same page as the rest of the folks in Guam and move towards more economic self-sustainability for us? What would you do, again, to be able to succumb or get around or get an exemption, for example, for the Jones Act and, of course, what is been owed to us in the compact impact and its reimbursement, right?
That's a great question, Jess. I mean, with that, I guess we have to start to find out what our political status we really want to be. Whether we want independence or we want statehood, or we got to figure out first what we want before we can start negotiating those kinds of things. Compact impact, you know, we said to the people out there, our brothers and sisters in the outer islands, that yeah, we can come here, we'll help you take care of what we can, but as we all know that all of that funding is going where? We haven't even been reimbursed properly, so how much more can we accept the burden of taking care of our brothers and sisters if we can't even take care of our people here on the island? I mean, prior to me becoming blind in 2008, I never had to worry about, worrying about how to survive, when to survive, and about money. And then all of a sudden, I became blind in 2008, and Compact Impact, the folks can go in there and get services ready available, and me locally from Guam can't even get services rendered for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Felix, same question?
For compact impact, we need to be sitting on the table when these negotiations are going on. We missed it, and we probably need to fight so that we can get on the table when these negotiations for compact programs are activated for Guam and the Micronesian Islands. There are things that we can do in Guam. For example, when we need to get a number, we need to get where our compact brothers and sisters are staying. I think it's easy if it's similar to what we do with the visitors program and customs program, where we just let people fill out these forms when they leave from compact areas, come to Guam, and before you get on the plane, you make sure that you have your shots in place, and you just fill out this form, and then when you get to customs or immigration, they just give them, and then it keeps track of where we are. And I think it's not a far-fetched idea. If some point maybe the governor's office can open, like they did in New York City, an Office of Immigration. And it's really not so much an immigration program, as so much as to keep track so that we can help assist these people in finding benefits and housing and things like that, and just to keep track on what's going on, and that they can assist them. Because they're going to be here. There's not any opportunities for us to move them back, maybe except as if there were criminals that we need to send back.
Okay. Now, of course, we're talking economic activity. We're talking about all these agencies, most especially line agencies. This morning we're reading about shortfall in books again for DOE. Do you agree with the governor's position on auctioning off only commercial property for those commercial properties that are delinquent in their taxes? Do you favor his position only going after commercial entities, or do you support as well everybody who's delinquent in taxes? And if you don't support either one, what is your take or your view on delinquent taxes?
Taxes, especially involving land, Jesse. Guam has a history, has a sensitive history on land takings, going all the way back to Spanish times, to the Navy times. It is just anathema for people think that GovWam is going to take some local residents' land. So I think the program should be really, really put together carefully with a lot of public input, a lot of transparency to select. So in a word, I don't support that private lands should be, private residential lands especially, should be taken in auctions. They should be given every opportunity. Those are taken by banks and private institutions, pretty common. But for the government to take a person's residential property away because of non-payment of taxes is just something that is just not right.
How about for the
Guam.
commercial entities, as the governor has said, we will go after commercial entities?
Commercial entities, maybe there's an opportunity to work something there. It's an equal opportunity place. The laws should be applied equally across the board. But maybe there could be instances where the law could be applied more to non-residential properties.
Okay. Frank, you have a minute 15.
That question, Jess, is an awesome question. For the commercial side, I agree. We should collect our taxes that need to be collected. Now, on the residential side, Jess, this is an election year. I'm a brand new candidate. If I was to say yes, I support that kind of measure, I wouldn't even make it on the primary election. So it's a kind of a trick question. Commercial, I agree, but for the land, to our residential owners who are suffering day to day, trying to make ends meet. I mean, I'm part of that spectrum where I can't even get a regular job. I'm living off disability, and try to make ends meet, pay my taxes. I want to be considered part of this community, so I want to pay my fair taxes. But when I fall through I fall through the cracks because of my disability. When I ask for reasonable accommodations, everybody seems to send me stuff in the mail and in writing. They have known that I've been blind since 2008, and reasonable accommodations for me is they just kept giving me stuff that I cannot read, or they're sending me stuff that is not reasonable. And then when I open up the letter and I finally have somebody there to read it, they tell me that I'm delinquent or I'm late or I'm cut.
So you're at minute 15. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go back to you, Mr. Ungacta. One of the very important issues here, I think, if I was running, is very important. Of course, power and water. And we see, again, I'm sure we all, I'm sure I speak for everyone in here in this room at this point, power is getting to the point of being a luxury item. Now, what would you do, should be elected in the 33rd Guam legislature, to try to tackle this situation? Our reliance on fossil fuel is something that is just enormous, and we can't rely on it anymore. We're seeing, of course, that solar paneling is something that has decreased a lot of people's power rates at this point. Recently, GPA pretty much came out somewhat in opposition, of course, and the schools looking at solar panels for their schools because of the fact that DOE again pays about $1 million a month in power bills. But imagine if DOE were to save that amount and maybe only pay a couple $1 million a year. Imagine 10 million. I think 10 million can go a great deal for DOE. What would you do should you be elected again 33rd Guam legislature to help tackle not just power rates, but also water rates as well? Frank?
That question, like I said, I agree. We got to look at other options besides what we have now. We're in the 21st century, and if solar is going to help us, we live in an island where sun is readily available, 12 hours of the day? And if solar can help bring down power bills, and we're spending most of a government budget, besides for payroll and administration costs, we're spending for power and water. So if we can find ways to mitigate that, then it would help. I mean, can you imagine how much money we would save saving power through the sun or wind energy or whatever it may be? And then for water, I heard we got urinals already available in the island that you don't even need to flush or use water. So why can't we look at those options? There are a lot of options on the table now that we didn't have 20 years ago. And we have to look at that to see what is better for all for the government to save money so we can take that money and really focus it
Better
on the
believe.
programs that we have left that we need to get it done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Benavente, you have a minute 10.
Guam Power Authority is on top of this, and I've worked on several projects personally, and there is a huge solar plant, solar facility that has gone up in Dandan, and I think there's a contract out for wind turbine power as well. Guam Power Authority has agreed to purchase the power, and there's distribution lines going from Dandan all the way up to Telefo, from I understand over to Santa Rita. There's a public law that requires that power be diversified. We spend millions of dollars every year sending money out of Guam to bring in oil that produces no extra jobs, no opportunities for private enterprise or anything like that. Guam needs to go solar. Guam needs to go wind turbine. Germany has switched almost to wind turbine almost immediately. Spain, there's other countries in the world that have moved from oil to solar and wind turbine, and I think that's the way we go. And Guam Power Authority just needs to get on track and find a way to make itself viable in that environment.
Okay, thank you. Back to you again, Felix, in this point here. Something near and dear to all of our hearts. At this point, we only have one hospital here that serves, of course, our population. Now, you're going to see when you get into the 33rd Guam legislature is that when I was there and I was the vice chair of the Committee on Health, that at that time we labeled the Guam Memorial Hospital as a bucket full of holes. At this point, I mean, it's a bucket with no bottom at this point. Are you willing to look at everything, put everything on the table, to even the possibility of maybe even government needing to get out of the hospital business? One of the first things we did, actions we did on the 27th Guam legislature, was we privatized GTA. We look at what it has brought now, competition. We have things, I mean, we have the GTA that reacts right away to new technologies and things of that nature. So it does that. Administrator Vega had just recently returned from the Philippines and said, hey, we're going to partner up with St. Luke. We're going to be bringing back specialties that we don't already have here, which is great. It's great news for our folks that won't have to travel. However, if you have not identified a source of funding, we still have to pay for that. So you're getting more expertise coming in here, which is great. Somebody has to pay for it. The non-payers will probably still be non-payers, and so the folks that are left to pay will be the ones to continue to shoulder that, and again, the rates will continue to go up. What is your view? What would you do? And are you willing to sit on the table and look at all the options and not dismiss anything? It says, well, you know, we have to provide this, we have to do this. Are you willing to sit down and put everything on the table and honestly look at the Guam Memorial Hospital and make decisions that are right for the people of Guam? Felix?
Jess, absolutely. I will be glad to sit down and look at all options on the table. You're right. The GTA sale was an outstanding move by Guam many years ago. The Guam Memorial Hospital, I look at it in addition to being a liability in terms of how it's portrayed in the media. Guam Memorial Hospital employs over 1,200 people. I think 200 and some of that are contract workers, and has a budget of about $140 million. That's a huge impact on the economy. There's a shortfall, of course. There's a difference between how much they make and how much they spend. And that is really the main issue, is how do we bridge that gap? It brings in $150 million a year. You know, we forget to mention that. So let's look at, you know, we've looked at many ways to get the hospital working right. And I'm not too far from agreeing to the concept of maybe at some point we could agree to a takeover of the hospital as it can allow itself to take advantage of high-tech situation. It's hard to run a hospital, very, very hard. I commend Mr. Vega and the board for doing a great job and the people over there. But At some point, we need to work with people that are making public hospitals work.
Okay, thank you. Frank, you have a minute 20.
That question too, just like I said, it's nice to see that they're talking about bringing specialists that we never had before, and they said what cost is going to cost us to bring them in, and where's that funding going to come from? It's bad enough, you know, we threw so much money into the hospital to try to see what we can do to just get accredited, trying to get things, paying vendors, getting stuff corrected, expanding this ward, expanding things in the hospital that need to get done. That uh, if we privatize it, I feel that maybe if we do privatize it, then things would be a little bit better off than what we're seeing with and dealing with now. I mean, how long has the situation in the hospital been going on? 5, 10 years, or we know it longer than that? You say you were in the 27 Guam legislature, and at that time it was going on. We're now entering the 33rd Guam legislature, and it's still going on. How much more are we going to keep continuing to let the hospital bleed out? You know, when the doctors, when there's an incident or whatever, the first thing they learn is stop the bleeding, and that it's still bleeding. You at your time in the 27, it was bleeding. Now, if I make it into the 33rd, it's still bleeding. How are we going to stop it?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ungacta. Now let me go back to again an issue that is you're on your platform as well, but it's almost everybody's platform in regards to disabilities and folks here in Guam who have disabilities, whether it's the mass transit, job opportunities, and things of that nature. You also said that in your personal capacity, persons with disabilities, as you are, again, are at a disadvantage. What would you do if and when the people of Guam elect you to the 33rd Guam legislature to be able to tackle the problems? What do you see as the biggest obstacle, the biggest barrier for folks of disabilities here in Guam? Mr. Ungacta.
Fairness, Jess, that's the biggest issue. You know, even just for regional accommodations for this is not only my disability with a blind person, but all disabilities. You know, look at the organizations that came up. ACT, we got New Vision Guam, Senior, now just recently PEP. Organizations are the ones stepping up to help figure out what our people need in the disability world. I mean, we have a government agency, DISIT and DVR, that's supposed to be there to help us find answers. But just me in my case alone, it took me 5 years to find out how to get proper training as a blind person, how to succeed in the island. So if I was able to sit in the 33rd Guam legislature, I'll take a look at what happened with the goodwill that we had prior. You know, we had a good agency, but they were taking advantage of the employees. Maybe we could have something better of a new assisted living for individuals of all disabilities, not just
So
blindness.
let me ask you real quick, and I'll add that onto your timer, Mr. Benavente. What is missing then in DISIT in its program? What do you think is totally missing there, and that maybe in the 33rd Guam legislature, the senators will be able to tackle that and provide that missing entity?
First, we got to look at what programs do we have in place that are still working and what programs that are not working. Because as I understood it, we were offered from the federal government, I believe, 2.5 million for persons with disability for blindness, and this year they're only allocating 800,000. Why is it that we couldn't come up to that, at least come up to that 2.5 to figure out what actually can be done more to our program? We have a program for blind individuals called the Vander Shepherd, but it's been enacted in 2008, I believe, or 9, and up to now the program hasn't even kept off the ground.
Okay, Mr. Benavente, I give you a minute 45.
The key in making sure that any program works, specifically to people with disabilities, is education. And I think that there is a big enough stakeholder community on Guam of people with disabilities that can make sure that they get more proactive in getting the public educated on the challenges, and I think we all know that there are challenges. Eh, and so the key to me is education, making sure that the stakeholders put the feet to the fire of the people that are in charge of these programs, and come up with creative programs, and constantly keep pushing and following up and see how these programs are doing. I'm sure there are points of light in any program, and just make sure that these programs are highlighted and supported. And if they're not adequately supported, then we should look at opportunities to find ways to support them.
Okay. Let me ask you this, and it's a thing that's been decided here recently. The Supreme Court of Guam came back and said that, of course, the decision that the 32nd Guam legislature, in regards to its legislative submission on its medicinal marijuana. What are your thoughts on medicinal marijuana? As a matter of fact, just recently, I think there was a federal bill on the federal side that was introduced for medicinal marijuana. I think the oil-based CBDs, I think it is, based on Charlotte's Web, to ease up, because what's happened, and we know one patient here in Guam at Terlahi, the family Terlahi, has relocated to Colorado because of that situation, and they're putting on a waiting list for that particular medicine. The unfortunate thing now is, because it's been looked at from the Guam Election Commission as being a referendum, so now it has to go through the scrutiny of the 50% plus one Santos Amendment and blank ballots counting as a no vote. What is your opinion on the medicinal use of marijuana, and how the 32nd Guam legislature tackle that? Should they have done that by themselves, or go out to the people for the people's decision? Mr. Benavente.
I support the use of medicinal marijuana, and I think there is science that supports the use, and science that validates it. And the places that allow medicinal marijuana, Washington State, Colorado, other places like that, are really taking the challenging the federal government to keep their business going. There are challenges along the way. There's banks that don't want to take the money. There's people that don't want to work because they don't want to declare that they're working in the marijuana industry. So given that, there is data to support, there's scientific data to support that medicinal marijuana works. The Guam legislature, should it have decided on the floor to pass this bill and bring it to the governor's office for signature without going through a referendum process? I really don't know the full argument behind why they did that, but it always is more defensible when something goes to the people, and you can say that the decision was made to the people, and some people may say that you deferred your obligation as a lawmaker, but many times in terms of strategy, and this is probably what happened, you refer to the people and let the people decide.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ungacta, you have a minute 20.
That question just is a very good question for me, because not only I'm a blind individual, I'm also a person on dialysis. So in Honolulu, they're offering another alternative to me for after treatment, what will work. And it was brought up about medical use of marijuana, and I agree with it for medical uses. And like Mr. Benavente said, our legislature, prior to the 32nd Guam legislature, a couple of legislatures before, make decisions and not even ask the advice of the people of Guam. Some knee-jerk reactions to whatever bills that come up. Does it really concern certain individuals or certain populations or certain areas, no matter what it may be? So when you get the voice from the people saying,
At 1 minute.
this is what we want, then that's great. That way, nobody can say that this is a knee-jerk legislation or this is something that the people didn't agree for because they didn't hear the input from the people. So I agree, taking it to the people is where it's good. And then for the Saunders Amendment, that's the thing I gotta look at is why is that the votes 50+1 has to count and
Okay.
why does it even apply?
Thank you, Mr. Ungacta. I'll tell you now, we're going to have to wrap it up, but thank you again, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Give you a minute again to talk to our folks. Tell them, again, your name, what side of the battle you're on, your number, and again, what would be the first thing you do if the people of Guam should elect you to the 33rd Guam Legislature. Mr. Ungacta, you go first.
Well, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having me today. My name is Frank Ungacta Jr. Everybody knows me as Kool-Aid. I'm number 7 on the Democratic side of the ballot. And like I said, my platform is for fighting for the people with disabilities. We need a fair chance to say that people with disabilities are not left behind. You know, we all know a person, our family members, our spouses, kids, our neighbors who have a disability. And in this realm now, in the 21st century, nobody should get left behind. And together moving forward in Guam, I would hope if I were able to sit in the 33rd Guam Legislature, to make a difference and bring that everybody is treated equal, even those with disabilities. Thank you.
And your number, what number are you?
Number 7, the Democratic side.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Mr. Benavente?
My name is Felix Benavente. I'm number 9 on the Republican side of the ballot. My platform revolves around economic development and providing opportunities for especially our younger generation. We have 2 pillars in our economy, and that's tourism, federal spending, and we should start looking at creating a 3rd pillar. And we have created a multi-billion-dollar district down in Tumon. I think we can create, for example, a port city over in PD, and that could become a new urban center, taking the core industries of the port and making that expand out and creating a port city in the PD Santa Rita as an area. Also, the University of Guam area as an ed tech center in Manila. So these places can create synergy, can create opportunities for jobs, can create opportunities for businesses and private enterprise. We lose too many of our people, and they come back because there's not any opportunity on Guam. We can provide opportunities similar to that. I also want to provide for opportunities to get the Tomorrow Land Trust program going. 2,000 to 8,000 people waiting in line is to me indefensible. And I have some ideas that maybe we can move that program forward.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. That's going to do it for today's KUAM News' Decision 2014. Tomorrow, join me again as my in-studio guest will be incumbent Senator Tom Ada, Democrat, and Republican Romeo Carlos. You can view this on our KUAM YouTube channel. Likewise, be a KUAM Headline News tonight. You'll see highlights. It'll be on local channel 2 at 7:30 this evening. Likewise, tomorrow afternoon, that's Tuesday afternoon, on KUAM TV 8 at 2 p.m. That's going to do it for now. Thank you again for joining me on The Candidate Buzz right here on Isla 63.